Hello, Internet people. This is Rebecca Bush.
I'm Lobsterbird.
We are actually in Costa Rica right now. Let me turn this a little bit so we have less white.
Get in here.
So we just wanted to have a conversation about all of our cool experiences. And Lobsterbird actually asked me to hop in on their podcast. And I was like, I have a podcast. We're like, let's just do a little dealio here. So do you want to share a little bit about what your podcast is called and what brought you to Costa Rica and the community you're aiming to start up?
Yes. So, as I said, my name is Lobsterbird, and my podcast is Bridge to Being. And it's all about really examining the polarities and the dualities in the world, like art and science, nature and technology, all of these different things that seem like they're separate, and bringing them together and creating this transcendent, third, mysterious thing that's evolving. Also, my life is a pilgrimage, so a lot of these episodes come when we're on pilgrimage, and so this Costa Rican pilgrimage, I consider this a pilgrimage, was the perfect time to restart my podcast after a long sacred pause of re-examining my life, and so much has happened in the world in the past few years. So that's the podcast, and how that's related to Costa Rica and this whole Ecovillage adventure is that the thing that I'm doing now, so I'm multi-prismatic. I do a million different things.
I can relate to that, trust me. Like juggling.
All the things. But the thing that I'm devoted to right now and putting all my energy into is creating what I'm calling a neuro-emergent refuge center. Neuro-emergent refuge center. That deserves some definition a little bit. So neuro-emergent for me encapsulates several different things, such as being neurodivergent, people having special needs, people having disabilities, but I don't really like any of those words because they're inherently ableist and imply that there is a way that we should be, and that needs to be fixed, instead of honoring each person as this brilliant, valuable human that they are, and finding ways to have everyone's needs met, as well as empowering everyone to live their truest potential here on this planet.
And what you wanted to learn on this trip was kind of some of the takeaways from these communities, right? Because you want to start your own community, I understand, to help with those who have the neurodivergent, a container, a safe haven, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just like me going to be a multidimensional place, where there's space for living, there's spaces for respite, to go, also retreats, an education center. For me, what I see in the world is really a lack of deeper healing around this whole issue. And so that's also one of my wheelhouses. So I really want to bring that deeper healing and empowerment work. And I came here because, I got the inklings that it really needs a space that can hold and support that, And I was talking to one of my friends who grew up in an intentional community in the South, and he said to me, well, if you're going to create one, first of all, they're hard. Most of them fail. And if you're going to do it, you have to have two things. One is a really naivete kind of sense of I can do this, even if you can't. But also you need to be real, and know that there's so much that you don't know, and there's so many people that have done it before, and that there's actually a lot to learn from people's failures, And my friend Sham, who I love very dearly, said, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people out there who are willing to share their failures. And then a week later, this Ecovillage Tours of Cynthia Tina, who we both love, came through, and I actually listened to your podcast.
See? I was like, oh yeah, 5 people are watching. All right. But hey, ripple effect.
Yeah, things move when you have an intention, a passion, and desire, energy, and you're willing to share that with the world, right? So yeah, I ended up coming on this and have learned so much about what it takes, what the failures are. And yeah, we can share more about that in a minute, but I know that you are also doing awesome things.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, first of all, because I'm also here for a similar purpose, because I have this vision, which I don't know that I really chose to download this vision. It kind of just channeled through, and it was hey, there's nothing that exists yet that meets the criteria of what it is you're interested in, whatever problem that you're trying to solve, I guess you could say. And for me, it's that I wanted to come to these communities to see how they're set up, what are their legal structures that are protecting them, how is the land held and stewarded, and how are their food production systems, what's their conflict resolution set up, how do they vet new prospective residents, and get things going on the property, and really like honor that larger vision, but on a day-to-day basis and at a micro level. Because ultimately, again, like being vulnerable, I don't have all the answers, and I know that there's so much that I don't know, but I do know that I am dedicated to really determining what it will take in order to pull off this vision that I have here in there north, because we're in Costa Rica. I have sunglasses on. It is hot and very
Sweaty.
warm. Yes. But in Texas, there's a strong freedom movement, if you will, and a lot of people have like these decentralized homesteads already. They're growing food. Maybe they have 5 acres, 10 acres, what have you, and they're stewarding the land. But I really felt like a larger parcel, like over 100 acres, where we could have at the heart of the community, obviously the food production, but a co-working space. Because I'm really interested in counter economics and building alternative institutions, and essentially like an alternative human settlement where the land is the first partner. And ultimately where we can really foster a sense of connection, not only to the land, but to one another. And I feel that peace through commerce, creating cottage industry and products that we love, and events and healing retreats and space to really explore and cultivate a desire to pursue those sort of efforts. So I'm like, let's do this eco development, Central Texas. Let's buy over 100 acres. Let's find other like-minded folks who want to jam and just show folks that there's another way. And that's why I was like excited about this tour, because it's like they're kind of, in a sense, and maybe we can touch on this because you went on the first leg of the tour. Some of the communities have been around for years, and some of them are just forming. And it's like really, honestly, been humbling to see the amount of time that it takes even to like, develop out roads, which some still didn't quite have. I like the picture that you posted, like, the roads, man, the roads. But yeah, I mean, what's like been your takeaway too of like, because I've only been on this second leg, and I could speak even on, some of the beautiful things I've seen and some of the things that are the hardships of building out communities like this. Like, what was the first leg of the tour like for you? And like any communities that really stood out and resonated?
Well, yes, I also just want to resonate so many of the things that you said. I also have that same feeling, like this was gifted to me, like to find a way to steward. And as part of that, the earth is really an integral, obviously, part of that, a part that needs to be uplifted also and empowered, because we've had so much destruction going on. So I mentioned that too, because in a kind of meta way, like zooming out on your question first before I get specific, is that what strikes me the most is the incredible diversity of all the different places that we've gone to visit.
Yeah.
And for me, like one of my primary like pillars and values and tenets is biodiversity. I also do permaculture design. I'm an herbalist, like all these things. And, so we know now, I'm sure you've heard Rebecca talk about this in her field, but I'm just starting to talk about this with my people, is that, biodiversity in terms of plants, in terms of our food is incredibly important, because we've had monoculture cropping that's destroyed the soil, yet our bodies and blah. Yeah, we're done with that. And so we know we have to have biodiversity in order for the earth and ecosystem to thrive. But equally as important to me is the biodiversity of humans, right? Which we also have not had and honored, right? We have all of these social and systemic issues, right, that make some people have more power than others, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why also to me and my project, it's extremely important, because I feel like it is the people that have been kind of pushed to the margins, that if we can find ways to uplift and empower and include everyone and have everyone be doing what they love to do, and being who they truly are, that like everyone will thrive. So I just wanted to add that, because biodiversity is like so important to me. And in seeing all these different eco-villages, super biodiverse, there's some common threads, I think, which are important to acknowledge. But yeah, so there's been everything from places that are like, have condominium structures. So you can buy land, you own your land. You can, for some of them, it's like you can do whatever you want. Some of them have certain rules and regulations about what you can do within them. Their systems are all different in terms of water and power and electricity. So there's everything from something that is like a model that we know, it's fairly common, right? To then the extreme side of that is like we operate on resonance and the flow.
Like Rancho
energy.
Delicioso. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
whoever's attracted to the land,
Yeah.
come to the land, and we're not too worried about the vetting process.
And
because
yeah,
we'll just tap into our resonance.
Right. And in terms of like rules and regulations, there's some that are very clear and have procedures and policies even for how people meet and make decisions. Their rule is that there is no rule at Rancho Delicioso.
Yeah.
It's like very important that they don't put in rules, because rules mean that you then need enforcement of those rules. And when you have enforcement, then you need like policing, right? You need all these things, and they're like, we just find it operates better without that.
Yeah, like spontaneous order and like natural attraction of like you were saying, what are your gifts? What are you interested in? What do you want to give? What do you want to receive? Yeah, that one was, and they probably were even the most developed that we've seen on the second leg of the tour, I would say. But they've also been around maybe for 15 years, I believe. So
yeah, I forget. But Resonance is another one that we went to visit yesterday, which was very much like, I mean, they are a condominium structure.
like
in
200
terms of
lots
buying.
they're
Yeah, the lots.
desiring to, eventually fill up, it sounds like.
Yeah, but their internal structure is like free flow. Just tell us what you want to do. We'll make it happen.
Let's play some music.
Yeah.
Pass around the instruments. Time to meditate.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to now. I feel like I've been in Costa Rica for like 7 years. Like I'm saturated with all the information. So let me zoom back to the original one. I mean, those ones have been around for longer, certainly on the first leg of it. And so they had more development, more infrastructure, more things in place. And I don't know why the one that's popping into my head, though, is the vortex of La Ecovillage Alegria and
Stephen
Taco
Brooks.
Talks.
Yeah,
All
we had
created by
him
Stephen
speak at the
Brooks.
Exxon Land Summit one year, and he's really created a lot.
Yeah, and he's like that person that like creates a thing and then moves on.
Yeah,
and
he's
people
like,
steward
create the
it.
engine, and then it runs itself, and I'm off to the next thing.
Yeah.
We love you, Stephen.
We do love you, Stephen.
What
And-
inspiration.
Oh my gosh, it was such a joy. I did Ecoversity's herbalism
Yeah,
certification, so it was so cool to get to
good.
meet Stephen, and also we got to meet him, and he toured us around Alegria, and to see what he's been able to do is really astounding. But yeah, even within those three, they all vary from La Ecoville. It's like very like condominium, like, like there's, it just felt a little corporate, to be honest,
yeah.
But then Taco Tall is the opposite of that. It's like people just came in, they're like building their own houses, like it's still like not even sure, like, the community is really loose, but also bonded. And I guess that's the thing. And that's the thing that I've been contemplating a lot in this trip, is that each one is bonded or comes together by a different ethos and intention and energy. And the systems and the structures and everything kind of unfold from that.
Yes.
And so what excites me about that is that it's all very individual, and a lot of them have called themselves like living labs or workshops. So another one we went to visit, which was super great, was Brave Earth, Tierra Valiente. They were really amazing because their ethos is so specific. Like they're about like decolonizing the minds and hearts of everyone there, and really like having a symbiosis and a working relationship in conjunction with all life that's around them, really powerful, like it's so clear, like
I'm having so much FOMO right now that I didn't get to go on the first leg of this. Like, yes. I think I'll just have to come back in June for the next time I do this Costa Rica tour.
That was one of the better decisions that I've made.
What about Earthwaking? You visited that one too, right?
Earthwaking World, again, totally different from all the rest of them.
They like a church. They set it up as a ministry.
Yeah, they're actually like a nonprofit under the church. And Costa Rica is a little different than the U.S. too, but there are some similarities where they're, under the legal structure of being a church. And so that affords different things that they're able to do and not do. But yeah, they're bounded by a spiritual ethos and also a really, I almost want to say strict, like ethos of personal development.
That's important. Yeah.
They have a lot of programming that's all about personal development, but also specifically like in relationship with one another. So they're like really all about, that kind of thing that happens when you bring people together and their triggers come up, and then like, how do we work through those? They mentioned that several times. And yeah, I mean, that's their thing. Their thing is that their inner world and work determines what they're able to create. So I mean, it is astounding because actually they haven't been open that long. I forget how many years. I mean, it's like fully going. Like
Yeah.
their centers are built, like their housing structures are up, their permaculture gardens are like flourishing, and but again, like really different. So like actually Brave Earth and Earth Waking bookmarked the two ends of the last tour. And it was really interesting because, I mean, there's also really a difference too in how different eco-villages are relating to the local ecosystem around them, you know, and whether or not someone is really participating. And so a place like Brave Earth really resonated with me by the way that they are integrating and also supporting the Tico community all around them, you know, so that, say, for example, food security isn't just for them in their little thing. They're looking at like, how can we encourage local growers and do trades and donate the top of their top line revenue actually to programs that help the local community. So that was Brave Earth.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's something that seems really important to me, because when we talk, and you probably have a lot to say about this, also I'll pass it to you on this, but you know, when we talk a lot about like living free, right, and being secure in our systems, and stuff like that, for me, when I think of sovereignty, it doesn't just mean like me and my little house alone.
Yeah.
I think like sovereignty has to do with really being sovereign within the local ecosystem that we're in.
Indeed.
Right? So anyway, I pass that to you. And
Sure.
like, what have you learned about how that relates?
Yeah, I think even like me being here in Costa Rica and thinking of what is happening right now on our 10-acre homestead, Radical Roots Ranch, and like I wouldn't be able to be here and engage even in this experience had we not had my community member Tanya really like holding down the fort and taking care of the chickens and even the dogs and the homestead and the house. And it's like we need one another. Like this whole thing of like I'm self-sufficient. I like hashtag self-sufficient on Instagram just because like some people still follow and I understand the concept of self-sufficiency, but it's really hard to do it alone. And it's not rewarding, in my opinion, to do it alone. It's like we have to have connection not only with the people who are living within these eco-villages or communities or whatever, and maybe in my case on our 10-acre homestead with the 7 people that we have there, but I know my neighbors. And when we had a tragedy strike, which I was telling you about what happened last night, guess who we relied on and who helped us and was there in a heartbeat? Our neighbors. And so if you're going to be moving to a place like Costa Rica, I think it's important to also, and we've seen many of these communities are doing this and desiring to do this and being incentivized to do this, connecting with the Ticos and the locals and really incorporating home sites in their communities for those folks and roles and, you know, activities and stewarding the farms and coming together. And Jason was actually talking about that earlier, and he's kind of leading the tour with Cynthia, how, you know, he's really integrated into Costa Rica over the last 20 years and the importance of having, gosh, I'm trying to think of the exact words that he used, but it was essentially like decentralized community, but like local, really, it's like a regional community, like a counter economy by connecting with all the, it's not just your little bubble, you know, it's like, how is it connected to the bigger whole? But yeah, just on that wavelength, I mean, we visited, I guess, 5 communities now in the second leg of the tour. So that's what, you know, I've seen. Unfortunately, I couldn't go on the first leg of the tour, which sounded pretty freaking epic. But, and you've been shooting video too, so I hope we get to see some of this content. But yeah, I mean, every single community we visited has been unique, and there have also been a lot of like a bubble chart, like lots of overlap, and it's been very insightful and very inspiring, you know, whether it is still raw land, like the place we visited, just kind of driving through the property, they had a little I don't know, yoga shala events kind of thing set up where they do host an annual event. They said that was the one that we were in Nosara. It's Shift Esperanza. Like that was like hardcore raw land. Like they had been regenerating and kind of getting the rows, and there's like scaffolding that you could climb up and like see the pretty views and stuff. They did this great presentation showing what it will be. But that's such a different experience, and thinking about the timing of like, how could you join if you wanted to join a community like that, or how are they really taking the time to set it up in such a way that it's much more, like you said, corporate. I don't want to use that word per se, but I kind of got that vibe. Versus some of these other communities, like we talked about Rancho Delicioso, that I felt like they kind of just scrapped it together and found people who wanted to jam, and they're doing their yoga classes. We did a breathwork class. They had like the aerial silks, the pole fitness set up in one zone, little food forestry throughout the property. I mean, it's been interesting to see the contrasts and some, but still like the similarities. But that's all I have to say about that. Kind of went on like a side tangent.
Yeah, I just also want to mention too, like just another real value of mine is really honoring the indigenous cultures of like wherever we are and find ourselves, and like just to reference like that we're all a product of colonization, you know, and the colonized mind. And so like what really strikes me, like what I feel like we're trying to do and then like what they're doing in the world is that, you know, these different endeavors are asking us to really think about things differently and really be differently in the world, you know?
Be the change.
Yeah, and to do it in a way that, like you're saying, it's not just thinking about like me and myself, but of this larger ecosystem and these larger dynamics that are going on. And so how we do that is like in a myriad of ways, you know? And that's why like it's striking to me how different they all are, how different like even what you and I want to do, you know? And in the world of you know, like disabilities or special needs, as words that we know, I can relate to, which I don't like, but there's a thing in the field called person-centered care. And it means that we're approaching each person as an individual, you know, and we're understanding, well, what are your specific needs? What are your goals? You know, like, how can we support you to meet those? And like, what do you have to give and contribute, you know? And I think about that, and I think about that in terms of ecosystems, because even if you think of land environments, you know, that's like, as the land is a person, right? Yeah. What is the care that needs? So also just coming to my mind is one place we visited on the first tour that I loved, which was Verde Energia, just like green energy, but all in one word in Spanish. And it was so incredible what they've done there, because basically what they did, and what a lot of other places have done too, but there's what's striking, is that they bought all these like what used to be cattle farms. So they were just lands that were depleted and all grass, and just like the soil was just like sand, dirt, and clay, you know. And in 7 years, they've regenerated it so much to the point where the macaws are coming back, the birds that like were gone from that area because there was no ecosystem to support them. And now they have this like nutrient-rich soil, and they're growing all this food, and they have 3 separate farms. And, you know, now we're starting to develop systems, like you were saying, of distribution, you know, like for not just themselves, but other people, like a nexus of different, you know, like trade routes and new systems, so that we can start to expand on that. And so, yeah, just thinking about, you know, like if we're really rooted in where we are and where we're meant to be and who we are, you know, we have a sense of for ourselves what our needs are and what our gifts are and how to contribute, but also like what that particular land is calling for, you know, and being able then to like support the land, which is then going to support us, right, in terms of nutrients, and like supporting each other, because like you're saying, yeah, your neighbor will show up for you in the way you need if you can, you know. And so, yeah, just like more and more of these spaces, I think, like it's been so inspiring to see that they're happening, you know, and that they're able to happen in unique ways, that they are these living labs and experiments. I think that's maybe one of the biggest takeaways I have, is that no one person has it figured out.
And there's no right or wrong way to do it, because everyone's unique, and each individual is unique, each community is unique, and each vision's unique.
And so like, so it's just this like continuing, ongoing experiment, and like it's always going to change. Like if you have a new community member, like that's automatically going to shift like how things are working.
The energetics.
Yeah, it's giving me a lot of hope.
I just kind of downloaded a thought when you were saying this prophecy of the eagle and the condor. Is that so? I was talking to Jason, who's one of the tour leaders, because he's been living here in Costa Rica for a while. And I was like, have you heard of this prophecy? And he was like, kind of, and I'm paraphrasing, explaining, in Costa Rica and in this area, just in general, not just the country, but this region, it's like the fusion of those worlds. And I think that's why maybe he was explaining like so much is happening here, and there's so many projects, and there's so much synergies, because people are like being called to this land, because there's like this transition occurring, this bridge, if you will, to this new earth where we are reconnecting with the land. And I'll just say this too, like being here, I love Texas, don't get me wrong, but there have been a lot of changes physically for me being here. Like I'm waking up on my own every morning at like 6 a.m., like basically with the sun, just shortly after the sun, one day with the sun. And just my energy levels have been different. I have had chronic back pain for pretty much like 10 years, and it's not perfect right now, but there's something about the climate here that like my bones just feel great.
Same.
And the foods we're eating and eating communally and with other people, like I'm just thinking of this prophecy and this like experience that I'm having, and it just seems like there's this timing of like now, like it's happening now, like 2024. There's this portal of like we're entering this new age of Aquarius or what. I mean, seriously, like I feel it here, especially like in my bones, and like that we are all going to be like cross-pollinating when we go back to wherever our home is, which I'm near Austin, Texas. You're near Asheville, right?
I'm in Blue Ridge, yeah.
Like taking these experiences and then like, okay, we've seen in this prophecy is like occurring, I feel at this time here, then like kind of cross-pollinating it back to the different areas where we live, and then building our visions maybe only now, but like creating it then in the physical realm. And like just I feel like this whole lifestyle is just going to multiply like exponentially. Like people are ready for something different, seeing the systems failing us, these centralized systems that are so fucked up and just like so backwards. It's like, no, like, just like, no, I'm not going to feed that parasite anymore. I'm so interested in just shutting down any like energy toward fighting the systems that aren't serving us, and just like completely shifting my focus into building these new beautiful systems that honor the earth first and foremost. And yeah, everyone kind of, I feel here is really resonant with that. And oh, yeah, I don't know. I just went on a little tangent there.
Definitely, though. Yeah, this is a time where the shift is happening. It's palpable. It's visceral. We're seeing it in different, initiatives that are happening. We are both engaged in co-creating, different initiatives that are happening. And I guess like even, I don't know, the last thing I have to say, but this is something that we talked about earlier, which I just feel is so important, and a thread in what you're saying is that, I mean, this has been my case all my life for various reasons, which I will not get into now, but you can listen to my podcast. There's a lot in there about this, is that I have been told so many times, like, that it's not possible, or that it's not the right way, or that it can't be done. Like I was always kind of like trying to bring things through before it was the time. And even right now, I have had so many people say to me when I started to reveal my vision for the Neuroemergent Refuge Center, like, well, I can tell you why not to do it. And there are people that have like lived in intentional community, or have tried to create one and have been like, either they've said like, really the better thing is to plug into one that you can find and go there, or just don't do it, or it's going to be super hard, which like of course it is. Creating anything is hard right now. As an artist and an entrepreneur, and anything is going to be hard. But I've been contemplating this because for me, I operate in life, but even with this, it's like you, this thing has come through and to me, and I don't see anything that meets the kind of like non-negotiables and the values that I have, right? And the things that I feel like need to happen. And so I feel like if something doesn't exist, someone has to create it. If
You're
it has
that
to
someone,
be me,
I'm that someone. You're that someone. Let's go.
Right? I'm also equally open though to the fact that I might find this amazing place, and I might see it lacking one thing, and I'm the person who's meant to bring that gift to that place.
That's
right?
And open.
And amplify it.
Dynamic.
But yeah, like what I love about that is like I kept hearing the other thing from all these people, and I said it to you one night. I said, people keep saying this, and like, you have this energy where like it feels like you're pretty set on doing it. And yeah, I just love what you said, is you were like, no!
There's always going to be naysayers. People who didn't follow their dreams, they say, why should you follow your dreams? Drag you down, shut you down. I didn't do my thing. Why should you do yours? They're disconnected from their inner child, their calling, and their purpose. So it hurts them to see you channeling this optimism of, I can do it. We can do it. It's like, yeah, it's like this weird validation of their failures. And so I feel like, you know, we're going to fail in ways. There's always going to be failures. I just had a failure last month in December, and even I was like, oh, they didn't want to do owner carry. This is so depressing. And I got in a funk. But you can even be your own worst enemies, being that voice inside your head saying, I can't do it. There's no way. There's no way. And then other people saying, you're like, oh, I guess we got to agree on that. But it's like shutting down that voice and just really tapping into like that higher vision of like, this is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. And knowing that inner knowing. And that I would love for you to share, if you're open to it, the call that you had and the last thing that was said and how it resonated with like, hey, I have a need for this. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's like literally the vision of what I want to create.
Oh shoot, yeah. I was like, wait, what are you
The
talking
same
about?
day we had that conversation, like you had that's like, it's just the universe speaking to you of like,
Yeah.
this is meant to happen. It's meant to happen now. And you're like destined to like bring forth that. So
Yeah, well, totally. So I'm going to go meta again for a second, and then I'll answer your specific question. But what was coming through to me too is that once again, in this idea of like person-centered care, which like, or, you know, like being-centered care, we could say, because the earth is a being to me, right? Like a tree is a being. But in this realm of that, it's going to be different for every single person. Like some people need and want to plug into a community. Like, so people need to be creating the thing, right? And they have the gift to bring. Or you might be the person, you know, like with the vision and with the capacity, you know, to hold the space for the thing to come through. So for me, that's really important, just to acknowledge that, like, if you have that dream and that vision and like everything, like, yes, the universe is telling you and you have that energy to do it, then by all means, don't listen to the naysayers, because they are out there. And you're right, they have failed. And like I was saying, you know, I was thinking about it in a very like resource way, right?
yeah.
Okay, like there's a community here I really like. I could spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, invest that into joining their community, or I could spend that amount of money and then that amount of energy, really. So it's not just about money, it's about resources, and energy.
Time.
I could spend that doing this thing right over here, which is like something that's coming through and coming of my own being. And like no one way is easier than the other, because both are going to have their hardships and their challenges and their failures, you know? And so, you know, also for the people that are telling people not to do it, I would just like encourage, like, let's think about it in a more person-centered way. That's true for some people. That's not true for other people, right? And so in my case, like we had this like powwow one night and you were like empowering me and I was like, yeah. And then I think it was the next day.
Yeah.
I had this call and I mean, it really just happened. So I'm a little sensitive, but basically like, I was talking with this amazing human who is in the financial sector, like a total rising star. And I was like, I had basically a job interview for joining their company, which is in the financial sector, which is like, I've been working in business and entrepreneurship, but not necessarily like finances and financial advising. I never, as an artist and a pilgrim, like I never really thought that that would be the thing. But I had this calling last year to really understand financial literacy and like investing and like really get into all of that. And so I've been obsessed with it and like sharing it with my clients. And so their company was hiring, like, and I was like, I don't know, like, let's just see. So, you know, we just had our like final interview the day after. Rebecca was like, do it. And, and like on the interview, you know, I had to mention, like, I'm sorry, I'm in Costa Rica. I'm sweaty. I'm at the beach. Like people might be coming through this interview. Like, and then they were like, well, what are you doing there? And, you know, so I was talking about how we were touring the Ecovillage and the intentional communities. And that's like really all I said. We had like a whole other thing. But by the end of it, we were all like, yes, I feel like this is a fit. Let's do it together. And it was literally in the last few moments of the interview where this incredible human said, you know, I also have a vision for creating an intentional community for people with autism, because my child had severe autism and I want to, you know, create a space for others to be able to thrive. And I was like, and I was like, I'm sorry, I have to share with you like what I am actually here to do, which is creating this neuro-emergent refuge center. And I explained it, and you know, this human was like, I have full body chills, and I was like,
Yes.
me too. And like potentially, like we had just magnetized and called in each other, like through the quantum field and through this like
Yes.
journey of really like following our bliss, our desire, and our interests, right? And then like this moment where it's both like we both want to do the same thing, and we can allocate
Offering
our
various
resources.
gifts.
Yeah.
And your skill sets and your passions here, and the finance thing is really the missing piece to the puzzle. So it's like all these, just putting it out there to the universe, and then you get connected in one way, and then it's like, oh my gosh, we were like destined to like partner or collab or like connect at this time. And I think earlier that day too at lunch we happened to sit by each other, and you're like, yeah, after this, you know, I'm gonna do like a little 9-day brainstorming to get the business plan together.
Oh, I think a creative retreat to like,
it's like, so it's like weird how the ideas, then they become conversations, and the conversations become actions, and the actions become the entity, and the entity becomes the physical land, and then the people get attracted like magnets. It's like, whoa, it just happens like that. But.
And it can happen very fast, you know, like when your energy is there. Yeah, and so there's a lot of like, that's the other thing I want to say to anyone who's thinking about it. There's so much magic, and there's so much going on underneath the surface that we don't even know about.
Yes.
So yes, the practical, logistical, the finances, the structures, all super important. I am totally like going to be very clear about those when I do my thing. And also there is, you know, like a deeper thing going on. And I also just really want to take a moment to like honor the land of Costa Rica.
Oh my gosh.
If you're listening to this and you can't see our video, like you can probably hear the birds.
Let me see if I can get a little view here.
Woo,
look at that, y'all. Yes, yes.
We are literally right now sitting on what they call stargazing net. So we have this it's bouncy.
Sorry if you guys are gonna get a little bounced around.
It's bouncy just like us. And they have these in lots of places
just like us. Yes.
Lots of places where you can just open your mind and heart and vision to the cosmos, and like really so honoring deeply this land and all it has to teach us as humans, because I feel like it's activating us right now. There's so much going on with regeneration. There's so many people being drawn to this place. Here specifically because of the earth energies that are happening, that are calling us like back to our humanity, back into our ability to be with one another and be with the planet in a really profound way. So just like
thank you, Costa Rica.
Thank you, trees. Thank you, Earth.
Ecovillage Tours for putting together this whole experience.
Jason for also like the deep connective work that Jason has been doing in like developing relationships and partnerships and connections,
mapping out the communities,
understanding the land. Like it is very profound here, and so I feel like for both of us, maybe if I could speak for both of us, is like so much energy has been given into our endeavors, but that's also what happens when one follows that call, you know. It's just like, I'm gonna go do this thing and soak in and learn what I can, and also have that inform what it is I'm truly meant to be doing and being in the world.
Oh yes, I feel like that's the perfect stopping place. Should we just do like a little group and kind of close out the
sorry, I kicked you out of this pack, guys. You want to lead it? Do you want me to
You lead it.
Okay.
Woo.
So let's together just take a few breaths of breathing in. Yeah, and breathing out, and then breathing in. Breathing out. One more time. Breathing in everything that's coming up for you. Exhaling, letting it all go. Then after the next inhale, we'll do an Om together. Let's do 2 more of those. Breathing in.
Yay, I'm sweaty, but I need to hug you. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. All the Costa Rica energies. All right, y'all, signing off. Thank you for listening. Thank you for